Good afternoon, everybody. This is Paul Higgins. I will be hosting today's July 6th CALPADS Q A. I'm a data analyst at CSIS supporting CALPADS. So let's just move on to announcements. First and foremost, if you have been putting in CALPADS service desk tickets, our queue is malfunctioning. It has been for the last 2 days. It came online yesterday late in the day, and we were able to get through, roughly the 100 tickets that came in before this morning. But it went down again today, and we are just now beginning to see a trickle of tickets coming in. And the last time I checked, we were up over 160 sitting in the backlog. On the CALPADS homepage, we did put up a message, and Alex has it up on the screen, telling you that the service desk is currently offline. So if you have put in a ticket and you have not received a response, that is why. We are working on it as a critical issue, obviously. So hopefully that will be resolved sooner rather than later. Next on the list, we did release CDDs last night, which if you're putting in a service desk ticket, I'm guessing that's what it's related to at the moment. We also have CALPADS Flash 226, which we put out on the 5th to describe what was going on with the CDDs and what we knew about them, that there are, I think, 17 or so over triggering. We have a training link in there. We've tried to identify where all the problems are, so that way you understand, don't touch the ones that we already know have problems, because those need to be dealt with. But the rest should be operating within spec, and if they're not, we need to hear about it in the service desk ticket, which again, that's funny because the ticket is, or the ticketing queue is down. So bear with us. We're working through all of this as we can. We're going to try and get to all your tickets as quickly as possible. But if you put one in today, just know it's going to be delayed. Let's see. We also did with July 1st rounding, we did kind of a partial rollover in CALPADS. It's not the full year-end rollover, but a lot of the academic year filters have shifted to reflect the 22-23 academic year. So if you're running reports, be aware that you may need to adjust your academic year filters to see last year, or to see the 21-22 data, just FYI. With that, I'd like to ask Angela for a briefing on our bug situation and our near future forecast. You there, Angela?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, so to add to the service desk fun, it looks like some are starting to come in, but I haven't got an official word from CDE that it's working. So there's a few tickets coming into the queue, but I can see that there's quite the backlog. So we apologize in advance that it's going to take us a while to catch up. There's over 300 that came in today. So here it is, 3 o'clock. It'll be 4 o'clock before we get off this call. And so you can imagine how that's going to go. Let me share my screen for a moment. Okay, so it's a short week this week. These are the items. Before I get to that, the known issues in the CALPADS footer has not been updated. That is related to our service desk outage. They're all tied together. So new bugs that have been logged today and fixes that went in last night have not been updated yet. So as soon as that is all functioning, we will get that updated for you. So the one that I wanted to highlight is this SSRV jobs are all failing today. And so we did notice that. And so we did get a bug logged for our developers. That side of the house is working okay. It's the service desk that's not. So they are working on that and they have a fix for us. And I imagine that will probably get patched either today or tomorrow. So I know that one's critical for you guys. And then the other items are on track to be patched on Tuesday. This list will grow between now and Friday when code cutoff happens, but these are the ones that I could see that were either in testing or done with testing. And again, it was a short week, so we won't have as many bug fixes as we usually do, but and it's also vacations season too, right? A lot of folks are taking time off. I think that was all I have. Martha, do you want to say anything about the CDDs and the Flash?
Well, I'm sure Paula will also want to say something, but Hopefully people saw Flash 226. The intent was to give you a heads up that we were turning it on and that we did recognize that there were some certification data discrepancies that were not triggering correctly. So we tried to alert you to that fact, and we hoped that Flash 226 would not alarm folks when you came in today to see the volume of errors. And so we tried to give you some strategy ways to start looking at those data discrepancies and not freak out. But unfortunately, some people were overwhelmed by what they saw. So I suppose we'll see some questions as we go through the Q&A, but if you haven't read Flash 226, please take the time to read that, and it'll help put what you're seeing in your certification status screen in context. And I don't know, Paul, if you wanted to say anything.
Well, interestingly enough, on the in the listserv, while we were waiting for the queue to start producing, I was going through some of the posts there, and I did see an interesting conversation going on with regard to the release last night and the introduction of CDDs, and a lot of people being upset with their release in this form and this kind of ragged, if you will. But you have to understand that this is a work in process. Excuse me. And I believe the name was Martin Coletti, and I'm not sure what LEA he's from, but he posted a very interesting little blurb defending us, and I appreciate that. But just as an objective statement, it was valuable. Because he's looking at it from a bigger picture and, you know, pointing out that the CDDs had to be introduced at some point, and doing it now and letting everybody see them was probably better than letting it linger until we had everything perfected and only giving you a couple weeks to, you know, get everything done. And he pointed out that, you know, we're trying to communicate with what we have, and that it's a very true statement as well. We're not trying to keep you in the dark. We're keeping you updated with everything we know as soon as we know it. So I apologize that, you know, this was a blow and that all those counts are going to be inflated for you. But, you know, as Martha said, that Flash 226 was intended to soften the blow this morning, to kind of give you forewarning before you logged in and went, oh my God, what happened? But, you know, didn't happen as well as we had liked, but it happened.
And Paul,
ahead,
I do
Martha,
want to
please.
say one thing that, you know, I put together that table of the different DDs and what submission they belong to, and I misreported the SPR G70. I put it in the EOY3 column, and I didn't create its own column under EOY2. So it was reported as being over triggering. I just put it in the wrong submission. So some other SPRGs may be in the wrong column as well and should go under EOY2. This rendering here, I don't think is accurate because the SPEDs aren't in EOY2, they're in EOY4. So something happened to this table when they published it.
Yeah, I'll talk to Wendy and see if we can fix that. I don't even think we had an EOY2 column, so I don't know where that came from.
We didn't, yeah.
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah, you know, I just want to say that, you know, certainly all of this should have been implemented well before end of year even open, but that didn't happen. So I guess the only thing I would say kind of like as a optimistic thing for the future is that hopefully, I mean, we're pushing very hard for all the CDDs to be ready before fall 1 even opens, so that basically you see these come in hopefully kind of more as a trickle as they occur versus all at once when it's very overwhelming. But in the future, basically, you will see the CDDs as well as CVRs, I believe, on an ongoing basis, not just when the submission window opens. So that might help you kind of spread out the workload.
Spread out the misery, if you will.
Yeah, I guess. Well, I mean, right now we anticipated and we were very concerned about how overwhelming this would be. But as I kind of mentioned, and I think there was a site post on site if any of you guys belong to that. But just to remind you that we did send a letter to the superintendents in May when all of this rolled out, stating that we will continue to monitor the situation and your progress and being able to resolve things. And we will, obviously take that into account as the deadline approaches. So just know that we're not crazy and that we're definitely gonna, we understand the challenges you face, and we apologize for having to go through all of that, but we are keeping tabs of how things are going, and we'll do what we can to make it so that you can be successful, whether that's, whether or not we have to change the deadlines or soften up some of the CDDs, but hopefully it'll get better in the future.
Thank you, Paula. All right, let's just jump into the queue since we're about 10, 12 minutes into this, so we have time to get through. Question, well, first one is just a shout out to me. Thank you for helping with the ticket. Number 2, 3 o'clock, Denise. Q1, per the exit code definitions, it seems that E156 instead of E155 should be used for grade 12 returning to the same school next year. Looking back at our historical records, E155 was used. Just want to clarify the difference between the two exit codes and that E156 is the correct use for the scenario described above. Yes, it is. The E156 was introduced this year. And it is the new one, the new exit code to describe grade 12 students, super seniors, if you want to call them that, grade 5 plus, students with disabilities and transitional services. They're all registered in grade 12 beyond their original grade 12. And if you're expecting them to return the following year in grade 12, you use the E156. As we said, that one was introduced just this year. So historically, you were doing exactly the right thing using the E155. We've just added a little bit of granularity to it. So the E155 is for grades, everything up through 12, and E156 is grade 12 plus, or 12 for multiple years. Maritza at 3 o'clock. I'm getting a CRSC 0123 for students that I am not able to find in CalPADS or my SIS.
We need a ticket for that, Paul.
Okay.
Can't even begin to try to figure that one out.
Maritza, if you would, service desk ticket, please. Marissa?
I actually have a
please.
service test ticket for that one. The one's right before this call as the tickets started trickling in. So, and you can submit one if you want, but I'm going to try and get a bug written before the end of the day, so it'll show up on the known issues tonight.
Perfect, thank you. Marissa at 301. Q1, hello, would you say it is okay to close out last year's enrollments in CalPADS, even though we have more end of year files we are working on? Thank you. If you're still loading data, most of the files like the SCSC, which are the student enrollments, should still post. But with the GER5 acting up, if you have not exited your students, you're free and clear to keep uploading stuff, even though the status is kind of weird when you upload it and they're still enrolled.
I think there's a consideration with your SIS vendor too. The timing of when do you close out enrollments in your SIS and then send that up to CalPADS. So I don't know if you've checked, Marissa, with your SIS vendor, if they have any concerns of the timing of when you exit your enrollments. I mean, certainly you can't finish EOY3 unless you do end all of your enrollments. You're getting a cert error for all of the students that still have open enrollments.
All right, 301, Tracy. I'm having trouble submitting my SSRV file to CalPADS. Are there any issues with uploading? Yes, apparently all SSRV files are failing today. So that is a new priority issue that Angela discussed at the beginning. Russell at 301, Q1, when submitting a status file, I receive a GER5 error stating that I do not have ownership of the student, but the student was enrolled during that time frame. I was told I need to remove the exit code and date, resubmit, then re-enter the exit code and date. Is this a bug or is this how the process works now? Okay, that's for SIMP. SSID. I have not run into this, and that sounds odd because the status file, obviously is reporting generally what has happened after a student's enrollment. So you're just accounting for everything there. So it should allow you to upload it even when the enrollment is closed. And without additional detail, I really don't have anything to answer on. So Russell, would you put in a service desk ticket, slap my name on it, and we'll see what we can do in the coming hours and day. 301, Stella, SSRV upload getting failed status. Yes, they're all failing currently. Ethan at 302, hi all, I have been unable to pull a certification error report listing all of the new DDs. Comes out blank instead. Is this a known issue?
Yes, I think we were struggling and trying to roll this out and that we couldn't get a report ready for the DDs. And so you have to look at them online in the certification status page to see the detail.
But even that, Martha, is troublesome for the larger LEAs. If you have, over 1,000 errors, what I'm finding is that when you click on the detail, you get the something went wrong error. So we do have a bug on that, but again, we haven't updated problem management yet, so that it's not showing up on the known issues.
And that's for LEAs that have really a large volume, right?
Right.
And what did Ethan say? How many he had? No, he didn't.
He did
What
not.
did you say, Angela, that you found?
10,000?
10,000?
Less than that. I don't know what the threshold is, but I had one with 2,000 that I couldn't get to.
Okay.
All right, moving on to Lily at 302, who's ever the pragmatist. What files, if any, are safe to upload? And the answer to that is anything you can upload without an error. No, it's we've seen people succeed with pretty much every file type, and the systematic errors like the GER5, the IVR1, those are problematic still, but they're not universal. So, I can't say, you're dead in the water. You may be able to get through, 90% of your files at this point. I can't say. With the bugs in the system, it's difficult to make any reliable predictions. My advice to you is to just start. Maybe start with end of year 3, do your discipline. I think that we have some bugs on some discipline reports, but the functionality seems to be good. Yeah, I mean, if you keep up with the flashes and the refresh daily defects, you can kind of get an idea of where we stand and what you can and can't get away with, or do not get away with. That was a bad word. Let's see. Q2. Cassie, 303. So over triggering means exactly what? And it means that it's triggering on more students than it should. So it's being too inclusive in its trigger logic.
Or it's triggering when it shouldn't. So some students shouldn't even have qualified.
Right. So it's looking at too broad of a field and it being too inclusive and pulling in too many students that are not supposed to be triggering the error. So they are refining the triggers and the logic to narrow those down so you don't get the inflated counts where some are legitimate and some aren't, and you have to sort through them on your own. We're trying to work through that. All right, I'm sorry, go ahead. All right, nothing. Melissa, 303, Q1, SPED 406 is under the warning section, but the category column says it's fatal. Is this a warning or a fatal? Let's see. Joe or Brandy, do you recall?
Yeah, that usually is a warning actually, because that's part of the initial entry date, I think.
Be a reason though why we made it a fatal on the certification, but that is worthy of a ticket for us to get clarification on from requirements.
So Melissa, if you would, please put in a service desk ticket so we can investigate that. Chris at 303, when will the active and fixed known issues list be updated?
As soon as we get word from CDE that the service desk is fixed, we can start updating the problem tickets, hoping for the end of the day, but can't promise that.
Okay. Fabiola 303, latest revision did not clear resolved errors. Could you let us know if there's an issue with revisions? Not sure which errors didn't clear or what corrective actions you took, so I can't really say that there's an issue. I will say that the CERT 140's storied past is still alive and well, and that I've had to trigger a couple revisions this week because they came up with inflated numbers, but a new revision did clear them. So Fabiola, if you still have errors remaining after you have uploaded corrective data and they're still not clearing, that's something that we would need to investigate with you. So if you need additional help, service desk ticket would be called for. Chris at 304, I am getting a Sync 499 error on my certification validations for my students in the SPED program. Is this a known issue? Well, we got the Sync 498, but not the 99. All right, there is no bug or known issue on the Sync 490. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, you can't rely on the user manual to know if there's a bug, but did Alex show it? Sorry, I was navigating somewhere else. So
I think a couple of people have sent in tickets on this that may be waiting in our queue. So right now they have it hasn't been written up, but it may turn into one, I think.
Okay. And just to go back what I was saying, Alex, if you could go back to the user manual. Since the redesign, we are a little bit out of sync with in the past, we've been able to link defects with and any updates to the error messages. So these are not current right now necessarily. So the best place to look is the known issues list. Just a reminder for folks that are new today.
Thank you. Kristen at 304 is reporting SPED 432 errors for students who are not enrolled in her district. I don't recall a bug on the 432.
No, but I think it's going to be one. I think that is legit. We just didn't know it before we sent out Flash 226. So that will likely be a new defect that it's triggering for the wrong kids.
Okie doke. Jamie at 304, dual enrollment reporting. I'm trying to clarify reporting CTE courses indicated with courses 7,000 through 8,999 and dual enrollment articulated courses. Can a course be reported to CalPADS as both CTE and dual enrolled? Is college credit required to report an articulated course section completion?
So the answer to the question as to whether or not you can report a course as both CTE and college credit, the answer is yes, right? Because that's what the course is. If it's a CTE course that they're taking for college credit, you should go ahead and indicate that. Where people get confused is when they extract the data for accountability purposes. That course, particularly if it's the course that made the student a completer, which generally, if they're earning college credit, generally it's the capstone course, then that course can only be used towards the CTE completer measure, which means that in order to be prepared for CCI, the student actually has to meet one of the other criteria, or they actually have to take another course and earn college credit in that course. So that's where people get confused. And as far as whether or not, what was the last part of the question, Paul? It has something to do with articulated.
Is college credit required to report an articulated course section completion?
So, no. Okay, so one of the things that you need to understand is we do have a post-secondary articulated CTE course indicator, which tells us that a specific, and it's only for CTE courses, that course has been articulated with a post-secondary. when the student gets the articulated credit is not a component of that particular data element. We just want to know whether or not the CTE or CTE course is articulated. Now, if the student earns college credit as part of completing that articulated course, then you would identify that course with a course instructional level of 23 or 24, which is college credit only or dual credit. And that's how we know they earned credit. But not all students in courses who complete articulated courses will earn college credit by the time they graduate. A lot of times articulated credit doesn't get attributed to the student until they enroll in the post-secondary.
Moving on, 305, Rachel. Getting an error FRMT to format 1 for my CSIS file. Is this a known issue? I know that we have the format 1 on the CRSC and at least one other file format, but I don't recall the other one. I don't believe it is the CSIS. Yeah, CRSC. And where's, oh, okay. And the post-secondary. Okay. No, it's not a known issue yet. So if you're experiencing a problem with that, please let us know so we can investigate it. If you've already put it in ticket, just know it's in the queue. Serena at 305. In our new CDDs today, I was looking at our end of year SPRG 0077. Is there a known issue for this error? The students are from the 14-15 academic year and the programs were never closed. Am I going to need to go back to those years and close them?
We know that that one's over triggering, and we're trying to come up with
70. That's 70, Brandy. This
Oh,
is
that's-
77. But it's
I'm
kind of
sorry about that.
related because it's looking at some older records. I would wait on that, Serena, until we know more. I mean, leave those, don't try to resolve really old ones just yet. Work on more current records.
I mean, Martha, isn't that a general thing that if it's triggering on really old stuff, that's probably not supposed to be that way, generally?
Generally.
Yeah. I mean, if you kind of think about it, before all of these things triggered upon input, so the system didn't have to think too much, it's just, but now the data's already in. So now the system has to figure out over what amount of data should it be looking at for this error. And so trying to get that logic right is a little tricky sometimes. So anyway,
And it's
yeah.
evolved too. We may
Yeah.
not have had the validation in place, 5-10 years ago.
Right. So that's
8
why
years
they're
ago.
showing up now.
Yeah.
But bottom line is we're trying to get it so that it doesn't show up those. We're not expecting folks to fix all that data from long ago, to say that. And if it's triggering that way, it's likely a defect that we're going to try to fix, so it doesn't show up for you.
The ultimate goal is the end of the year should be very focused on the 21-22 data. There may be scenarios where we are looking at a previous year or two, but not like all of the years before. So put that on hold.
All right, and 305, Ren asks pretty much the same question that they had a lot of errors this morning from like the year 2010. And so we just answered that. You don't have to worry about going back and repairing those. We're going to repair the trigger. 306, April, is there a reason why the CDD page won't display? When I click on the errors, only a blank page comes up.
Angela answered that one. It's a
All right.
defect.
Hmm.
We're having problems when there's a large amount. So
307, Christine asks, should we be running extracts from our SIS into CALPADS or should we be waiting?
you should be updating CALPADS. So you should generate your extracts and upload to CALPADS.
All right, and 307, W. Guerrero. I'm getting a CRSE 0274 and the students that are coming in are not with our LEA.
That may be a new bug, so we need to investigate.
Although if it's, well, is the CRSC 0274 a DD now, or is that still an input validation?
Well, and it's a CRSE, which we're on CRSCs,
Right.
not E's.
All right, so it is a data discrepancy. Never mind. Never mind. I was going to say, why were they included in the upload, but obviously not. Okay. Albert at 3:07. When is the next snapshot going to update in CalPads? Snapshots are driven by your activity. As you load relevant data to the submission, you are flagged for a new revision, and then as soon as you're idle for long enough, you're included in the queue, and so long as you remain idle while you're in the queue, you get a new revision. If you work throughout the day, you probably won't get a new revision throughout the day, but you should get one in the overnight. I know that last week we had some revisioning issues that took a couple days to iron out, but I had not heard of any issues this week. Does anybody know of any issues this week?
No.
We haven't been informed of any issues.
Okay, so if you've been uploading new data and you haven't gotten a new revision, please let us know. Maybe we can trip one on our side. Geeta at 3:08. Sprig 70 showing under end of year 3, but I got those under end of year 2. Do I ignore them for the time being? Also, how do we trigger a new snapshot? Well, I just discussed that, and the Sprig 70 is included on the known issues for the CDDs that appear to be over triggering. So yes, go ahead and ignore your Sprig 70s for the time being. Colleen, thank you again so much for the transparency right now. We do our best. Elatania, I'm getting a lot of errors for the CRSC 0530 and 0468. I checked my SIS, Aries, and those errors are not valid. Please advise. I need this file to pass so I can upload my SCTE and make sure we have the correct counts. We do have a bug on the 468 that looks like it should have been patched. But if it's not in the system and you're still experiencing problems, know that there may be a problem out there. But that should have been patched. So if you're still getting the problem, please open a service desk ticket. Give us the job ID where the CRSC 0530 and 0468 are triggering. And if you have suspect SSIDs, include those as well. 310, Amanda Harris. Is there an issue with entering seeds? I keep getting this, the calpads.org page can't be found. No web page was found with this web address, HTTP error 404. Nope, I did not know about that one. All right, so Alex has taken us on a drive into the staff data maintenance.
Sometimes when you do get stuff like that, that you clear everything, right? You clear your cache, close the browser, start again, and because sometimes after a release, things go wonky.
So yeah, and when you get the 404, are you just trying to navigate to the staff page, or are you trying to upload data, or I'm not sure exactly when that error is triggering for you. So if you could clarify that a little lower down in the chat box, I'd appreciate that. Or if you just want to open a service desk ticket, we'll get to you as quickly as we can. Jackie at 312, when can we expect the known issues to be updated? I only see, okay, hopefully by the end of the day. Angela and Kyron were working on that.
Well, and we were waylaid, right? The service desk has been down all day, and
well, then there's that.
Yeah. So once we have to wait for that to get fixed all the way, and then we can upload it. So hopefully it'll be before the end of the day.
Natasha at 312, have superintendents received any update on the status of CalPads to let them know it is still problematic and not fully functioning?
I'll address that at the top of the hour.
Well, that, yeah, I don't know if Shana wants to chime in. There is a weekly update that is provided. I don't know how, what access, I mean, is that purpose of that was to provide more visibility and transparency into how things are going. But it's about time for the next annual, back to school letter. So we will probably be putting something forth soon.
All right, thank you, Paula. 315, Deborah Reynolds. I have a student that was homeless and in a dwelling type 110. They moved on 7/14 and are now in homeless dwelling type 130. I'm getting a GER 5. LEA does not have ownership of the student enrollment. To make this update, can we no longer show a change in dwelling type over the summer? If you have exited your student, you would have to put it in as soon as the new following year enrollment begins. And that's just the nature of it. If you've exited the student, you're not going to be able to update most data elements. There are caveats to that during certain windows for SPED data, but for the most part, you're not going to be able to upload data for students that you have exited. Shelley 316, wouldn't we use exit code 125, E125, prior special ed completer for all cert of completion continuing students, or should we stop using that and use the E156? The E156 is used in all of the intervening years. So if they're a first year transitional student and you expect them to come back next year, yeah, exit with the E156. If they've completed 3 or 4 years of transition and they're leaving permanently, their terminal exit category or coding should be the E125. Just basically, capping off the container, saying, okay, they were a prior special ed completer, they've done all these transitions, now they're done, bam, E125. The E125 should be the final exit coding used. The E156 is that intervening year exit. Shelley Ellison at 316, I put in a ticket already, but I thought I would share since the tickets are not working right now. I have a fatal CRSE 0274 in end of year 1. Many of them are elementary schools, so hopefully not legit. And I'm not being picky here. Is it a CRSE or a CRSC? Just for clarity's sake. And I'm not being picky. I understand that they're very similar.
Maybe in the error list it says CRSE, I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
Or we're marking them as CRSC instead of SC.
Okay. Shelley, thank you for sharing, and I'm sure we'll get to your bug sometime this evening, maybe overnight, who knows. Mary Masters 316, we are the current SPED upload error, SSRV, et cetera. Is this the reason my CDDs for end of year 4 are in the thousands when I had 1 last Friday?
Yes.
Well, technically, you didn't have any CDDs last Friday because they didn't exist in CalPADS. But yes, the introduction of the CDDs and the problems with the uploading of data is probably creating quite a few CDD issues for you. Okay, Russell already has a ticket and he's asking to port it over to me. That'll work. Sherry, all Sync 499 are correct in the SIS, actually showing correct in the modal and CalPADS. So this may be one to note on your records to look into. No removal to alt setting. Maybe this is associated with the SSRV issue or with the SPED students. All right, thank you, Sherry. Ethan has a real quick follow-up. I have 13,000 DDs on a single charter school, very hard to view 10 rows at a time. So that's describing the issue with the UI display instead of being able to download the report. Understood, Ethan, thank you. I'm apparently making Brenna Dunkel laugh. You're welcome. Carol McKenzie, end of year 3 high fatals, not on your list, Sync 497, 499, 490, end of year 4, SPED 364, 430, 432, and for end of year 1, CRSC 0123, just possibly sharing unreported over triggers. My counts are very low yesterday, thanks. All right, we'll look into those. Chuck at 322, when will CDDs that show in the UI be available in the 1.0 certification error report?
I don't think they're going to be for EOI.
But future functionality should have them on there?
Yeah, some version of it. My understanding is The way we implemented the CDDs in the certification UI is that we borrowed from the data discrepancy functionality. And so unbeknownst to you guys, because we haven't turned on that functionality to give you visibility, we have been looking at data discrepancies. And so thereby they're a unique file type, right? So you get a data discrepancy for a SPED record, you get a different data discrepancy for SENR. And so we don't have the functionality yet, and I don't know how the requirements of how they're going to implement it, to bundle all of the DDs into one report. They were thinking of it would be an individual CSV file of here's all of your SPED DDs and here's all of your SENR in a separate file, and not, they haven't yet combined them all to one. And with the amount of work that we have to do just to fix bugs and whatnot, new functionality is not going to be on their horizon in the next couple of months. So you're going to have to live with checking them out on the UI screen.
Alrighty, Sue 324 updating us that she has several Sync 499 errors as well, and maybe a possible bug issue. Yadira 325, on Friday I had only one error in my, on Friday I had only one error in EOI2. Took the day off. Now I have 22 in end of year 2 and 585 in end of year 3, 2793 in end of year 4. I have not uploaded any data. What should I do? This is discussed in Flash 226, as Alex has up on the screen. Last night, we introduced all the certification data discrepancies to the system. Many of them are overcounting or over triggering, so they're including too many students. That's been included in there. But what you need to know about the CDDs is that they are the equivalent of cert errors that you need to resolve in order to clean your data to get it LEA approved by the deadline. They were not introduced earlier because they were not fully functional and we had no way to display them, and we're just getting the functionality to the point where it is releasable. So we got it out to you as quickly as we could, and we apologize that it just happened to be on your one day off. So you returned to a storm in your submission. So I apologize for that. And what should you do? Oh, that's also discussed in there, and there's a training link as well as some actionable things to be doing. And Alex just highlighted some. Just get in there and understand what they are. Open them up, see what the data being triggered is, go and investigate it, get used to the interface, get used to the interaction with the data, and hopefully we will have the triggers fixed soon. Okay, Terry, I'm getting CSIS 488. What seems like every CSIS record in the file is submitted. Is there something wrong with the discipline file seeing incident numbers? As you can see up on the screen, the CSIS 488 is included in the CDDs that appear to be over triggering. So know that that's probably part of your problem. So if you can verify the data in there and you're comfortable with it and you don't see any problems, just wait for and keep watching the known issues, waiting for that bug patch. ASIA 325, effective today, I am getting errors on SSIDs that are not associated with the real student records. It opens a ticket. I opened a ticket about this. Is it a known issue? What's the ETA on fixing this? ASIA, as we discussed, we have not seen the ticket yet, so we can't really comment on what we don't know yet, but it sounds like a bad thing. So if it's as bad as that, we're going to have it sent up and it will create a bug. All right, Q2. All right, David, 327. Okay. Well, errors that are triggering from years old enrollments, i.e. CINF 453, be eliminated? If so, when? I have no idea if I should try and fix something from 2010. Please advise. Don't try and fix something from 2010. Stand by. Yeah, it's all the older issues will be weeded out. So don't worry about expending your limited resources on addressing stuff that's years old. Eric at 329, we had a course that was identified as the capstone for one of our CTE pathways. The teacher was supposed to get their CTE credentials in December, but never did. Now we have to either, one, get a misassignment for the teacher and course, or two, do not report the path capstone or the completers. What is the advice on the proper way to report this?
You have to choose. I mean, with respect to whether or not the teacher needs to have a CTE credential in order for it to be counted as a CTE course for the dashboard does not look at whether or not a teacher has a CTE credential. However, the Commission on Teacher Credentialing does. So you're just going to have to choose one or the other.
Okie dokie. 329, Jean Liu. Is PSTS 0481 a known issue? I have 2 SPED students who were exited, 12th graders, both were given a T200 exit as of 5/27/21. Does not sound familiar. It may be the exit code. Can you pull up the 481 for me? Scroll down.
Isn't T200 out of the country?
Yeah, and it's not included in the list here. So the problem is that exit code removed the student from eligibility to be reported for PSTS. If you look in this suggested resolutions pane under understanding the error, if education program participation code is 30, then the student must have an SNR record, blah, 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 blah. School says, or in exit categories of E125, E140, E300, E400, E410, or T280. In addition, the student must be older than 16 at the end of that CNR record. So the PSTS 481 is triggering because they are ineligible based on their exit coding. Wow, I feel accomplished actually being able to answer a question today. Okay, Ren says, thank you for the great news. I kind of knew that, but needed confirmation. Got it, Ren. Albert 333 made a change yesterday, no change. Is that for a snapshot refresh? If so, just put in a service desk ticket requesting a snapshot refresh, and we'll do what we can from our end. Karen, any timeline on when monitoring reports will be fixed? I'm seeing pages and pages of LEAs and other SELPAs. I'm going to take that ringing silence as we're working on it, and we just don't have.
Sorry, was that for me, Paul? I was working on other stuff.
It was just a general question for the group as to if anybody knew when
16.8, is that what it was, the monitoring?
Yeah, all the monitoring reports will be fixed. So I knew that there are existing bugs from before the implementation.
Yes.
So
and they are not high on the list. So I don't have a warm fuzzy feeling that it'll be fixed anytime soon, but they are in the backlog. That's the best I can say.
Perfect. And look at that, at 334, Jean found her own problem before I ever found it for her. So congratulations, Jean. I'm glad I could help confirm that. So Jan at 335, sorry, the rest of my question, when I go in and delete the duplicate record, the original record is deleted also. I have to go back and re-enter the records.
I think because of the primary key, where they both have the same start date, and that's a primary key. And so it is going to remove them both, and then you got to add back in the correct one with the correct end date.
Okie dokie. Let's see. Rocio, 335, IVR 0116, duplicates within a file based on primary key error when submitting STAS file. Students do not have duplicate records or more than one file. Is this a known issue? I don't know if we have anything on the 116. Well, this is for STAS, not SSRV. Huh. Well, we do have an IVR 116 issue on SSRV data, but I don't see anything for STAS data. If you want to open up service desk ticket, include the job ID as to where you're getting that. We can definitely investigate that. Clarissa, 335, my homeless program records with 21-22 start dates are not showing up in end of year 2 report 5.3. I didn't see this as a known issue. Is this a bug?
I thought we do have something going on with 5.3.
Not
Maybe
seeing
it's in the
anything.
queue to be written up.
Maybe. Yeah, I don't see anything.
I did
on
write
the-
up an issue today for the 5.2 and 5.3, not counting a student for the program 122, but not homeless. So maybe there's more to it.
All right, Clarissa, if you have a ticket in the queue, no, we'll get to it. If you have not opened the service desk ticket on this, you may want to do so. 336, Amanda, validating an entry. I did a restart on my computer twice and had my coworker try on her computer as well. So she has cleared her cache and everything else. So, well, Amanda, I don't have any actionable guidance for you right off the top of my head. I apologize.
I think this goes back to the 404
Yeah,
on the seed
it
lookup.
does.
So we need a ticket then.
Yeah, please. And Natasha's clarifying that she meant an update since the May 20th letter to the superintendents. So have we spoken to the superintendent since May 20th with regard to the health of CalPADS?
No, but Paula indicated that there's the weekly update and that we owe everybody a back to school letter. So they will be updated soon.
All right. Laura 340, should all continuing students with disabilities in transition period have a COC for completion status, certificate of I'm guessing that's certificate of completion status for the first year they were in 12th grade, so they can roll over on that the next year. Yes, it's generally speaking the exiting of a student with disabilities from their initial grade 12 year exits them as an E230-120, a completer special ed certificate of completion. Then if they come back and they're doing transition services, then they get exited E156, 156, 156 for their years that they're expected to come back. And then their final one is that E125. If they earn a high school diploma, they're not eligible to return for transition services. And if you exit them as anything other than E23120, Brandy, there was no IVR on the whole requiring the
No.
E23120. Okay. Yeah, you don't
Sure.
need the E23120. It's usual, I guess.
But what I will say is that is when you exit a student as exiting with a certificate of completion is really a local decision. So in answer to your question about whether or not you have to do it in their initial cohort year, you don't have to. You can actually wait until they exit at the very end after they've received their transition services and you're exiting, and then you give them a certificate of completion. It really is dependent on your local practices.
All right, thank you, Brandy. Eric has a suggestion at 343. Right now, there are many people new to CalPADS and new terminologies pushed out to us. Would it be possible for the rest of the summer state what the definitions are? For example, CDD. I've been around for a while and I found it difficult to keep up. Okay, fair enough. The CDDs are the certification data discrepancies, which are effectively cert errors. Whereas the DDs, the data discrepancies, are just the persistent running of all of those errors, and then we're going to organize them into their own display and own reports so you can work on them throughout the year and you know that they're present. But then in each submission, you're going to get CDDs, the certification data discrepancies that are associated with only that submission and that you have to resolve prior to approving or certifying your data. So that's the difference between a DD and a CDD. And yes, we recognize that we're pushing out new acronyms, and we will try to do better to use the actual words for the rest of the summer, so that way we can possibly just revert to acronyms into the future. Carol at 3:45. Paul, you mentioned that our activity can affect the timing of our next snapshot. Never knew that. How long should we relax and stop making updates in order to hasten our next snapshot? I find the traffic is faster in the evening, so make changes as often as I can, then wait. Time estimate, how many dormant hours should we wait? I'm getting a snapshot every other day or so. It really depends on what's going on inside of CalPADS as to how quickly it can be turned around. The file uploads are much faster now, as you know, the developers are very happy to tell us that, you know, we're getting, the average is like less than 40 seconds to get even large files into the system. So we got that going, but getting the other end to refresh as quickly is not as fast as that, obviously. So if, let's say, you came in at 8 o'clock in the morning, you immediately came in, loaded a file, it posted within 40 seconds. If that was all the work you did and you remained idle from that point forward, you would probably see a revision noon, 1 o'clock. But if you're making changes throughout the day and then you stop at 5 and you're flagged for a revision, you're probably in the revision queue with several thousand others. So in the morning, there would probably be some carryover and you would probably get a revision the next day if you remained idle on your way in the door. So there's no science to this. There's a lot of art to it, and there's a lot of intuition to it, and there's a lot of get in there, do your work, and then go and do your other duties as assigned. And that's a really crappy thing to say, but right now that's kind of the reality of it, that you need to get in there, get data in, get it addressed as quickly as possible. And then if you want a new revision that day, you kind of have to remain idle for the next couple hours to up your odds of getting that. So it's not a very productive way of doing things, unfortunately. Alternatively, you could go complete blitzkrieg for a 16-hour window, uploading anything and everything you can, and then stopping and getting a revision the next day, and repeating that every other day. There are lots of strategies out there, and no one strategy ever works all the time. Sorry. Hey, Shelly just updated us at 3:46 saying that she is now getting the service certificates, and that is good news. I've been kind of keeping an eye out, and it looks like we've dropped about 140 tickets into the queue in the last hour. So that's where we are. Sylvia, 350. For the GER5 SPED error, it says the SPED record must have an overlapping enrollment record. Can the SPED record meeting date July 7th being before the enrollment date of August 29th? Yes, that should be acceptable, and we should be running into the window soon where, so long as they either have a pre-enrollment or an exited post-enrollment or last year enrollment, you should have the window to upload some data. Is that correct, Brandy? Are we opening that window soon?
The pre-enrollment window?
Well, the relaxation of the GER5 for SPED data over the summer.
That is, I cannot remember what that one is. September and May.
Alex is highlighting it.
Oh, there it is. Okay.
June, July, and
go.
August should be relaxed for GER5.
Oh, there we go. Thanks, Alex. I guess, yes.
Well, we're in that window now, and I know that we have not relaxed it, so we may want to revisit that at some point, maybe the CRIS meeting or something. Okay, Inez, 351, not a question, just an FYI. As for not being able to pull certification error reporting listings for all of our DDs. Is blank as mentioned. I know this is a known issue, but I don't have high numbers. I have 2,458 for end of year 3. I know what they are, but I cannot see them. 720 at end of year 4. End of year and 1 of 2 have 1 each, yet all are not, or all are unavailable for me to see.
I was updated by the requirements team that there is a CR in the backlog to add the records to the certification report. I don't have an ETA, but it's out there.
Right, so in the meantime, it's
One by
UI all the
one.
way. All right, Jan at 356, original question was about the SPRIG 249 duplicates SPRG record within files. So FYI, anyone fixing this error by deleting the duplicate needs to know that both records will be deleted because they get the primary key and you will have to enter the correct record again. Thank you, Jan. Laura, thanking Brandy and me. Mary, regarding the COC question 340, am I correct that if we exit with E23120, the student moves on to transition, then the student loses ability to ever get a diploma? I believe that they can still earn the diploma during their transitional services, but then that ends their transitional services. And based on the hierarchy of the graduation coding, they would get a count in the subsequent graduate counts. Is that correct?
Well, okay. So if a student moves on and receives transition services after their initial cohort year, they can still pursue a high school diploma. There isn't anything precluding them from doing that. The difference is that we do have an indicator on the student enrollment file that says it's the adults with disabilities in transition, okay? That is reserved for students who are not pursuing a high school diploma. And the reason that's important is after a student's initial cohort year, so that those students don't continue to be counted in the denominator of the DAS graduation rate, that post-secondary transition indicator would equal yes, which means, you know, they've got a certificate of completion, they're not pursuing a high school diploma, so count them one time and then don't keep counting them in the subsequent years in the DAS graduation rate. So I guess my point is, if you have a student who moves in past their initial cohort year, they're receiving transition services, but they are still pursuing their high school diploma, that's totally fine. You can give them a certificate of completion, and later on they can be a high school graduate if they meet the criteria in the subsequent years, but do not mark them as adults with disabilities in transition. Don't do that. Because if they're still pursuing their high school diploma, they're not solely receiving transition services.
Good to know. Thank you, Brandy. All right, we've crossed 4 o'clock by 6 minutes. So if you need to go, I want to respect your time, give it back to you. We'll see you later. Thank you for being with us. If you want to stick around, I'm going to go back and hit all the Q2s, Q3s that I can up to the 4 o'clock hour, or that were submitted by the 4 o'clock. So moving on. Okay. Russell 303, when will the STAS files replace the existing STAS records? So when will STAS files go into replacement processing?
That is in the current backlog for next Tuesday, but as of this morning, the developer had not started working on it, and I hear he's out on Friday. So it may not make it into this coming Tuesday. It might be the following Tuesday.
Understood. Thank you. 311, are they going to extend the date for end of year? All this bugs and we cannot send out reports for review from the administrations.
I'll address that. It's always under advisement. CD's not going to leave you high and dry. If the system's causing problems, that is not allowing you to be successful.
Stella 326, mention was made at the beginning of the call that superintendents were notified in May that things were not moving along smoothly in the implementation of the redesign. Has there been subsequent communication? No, but it is on the agenda to do. They will be contacted at the latest with the return to school letter.
345.
345 with Ethan. Could support team pull DDs in bulk for us if we submit tickets? I have no idea how I'm going to troubleshoot 5-figure counts of DDs, 10 rows at a time via the UI, which times out, fails, and fails to load frequently.
We don't have access.
Yeah, I was going to say, we don't really have access.
Wish we had that kind of access.
Ethan, start with the smaller subset of errors.
And we do
then-
have a bug that, it's not, they're not showing up. It just hasn't made it to the known issues yet. The large volume ones get error out.
And we know how important it is to make them visible, so it'll be at the very top to work on. So at least it shows up in the UI.
Well, Ethan again at 356, tagging along with Inez. I have been able to get the UI to display any DDs for some time in very small counts of errors. It doesn't time out or throw an error. It just never displays the error table. So the actual DD UI is not behaving well for Ethan. And that's a problem.
Yeah,
I think
Ethan,
that's not being able to display, right, Angela?
Yeah, Ethan, could you type in which district you're working on? I'll take a look.
All right, and Terry Foster, when will we be able to delete a cell of record in the UI?
I deleted a solo record in the UI today. Didn't have an issue. I just had to add a temporary enrollment because the status state was outside of the enrollment for the LA that was trying to delete the record. So I added a temporary, secondary code 20 enrollment to overlap the dates of that solo record, and I was able to delete it using the UI.
So Terry, there could be lots of reasons why you can't delete. I mean, there's usually an error number that goes along with that transaction. So if you need help, send in a ticket.
Yes, indeed. All right, we're at 10 past the hour. I think we're done. We will be back on Monday, not Friday, for the next office hours on Monday. And in the meantime, if you need help, please open a service desk ticket. And after we're done digging ourselves out from the mountain we've created, we will help you as quickly as we can. And wherever we see you, whether it's on the listserv, in the queue, or in person, we love you anyway. So stay strong out there and know we're going to try and help you as best we can. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Please be patient while we work through that big backlog.